This is a tutorial on how to fill out the 2024 W-4 form. And as you can see, it's a fairly simple form, one page, although there are some worksheets. And I'll show you how to complete this very easily. Now, if you're a W-2 employee, you fill this out once you get hired, but it's not enough that you fill it out just once at the time of being hired. If you have any sort of life event or major change, like you got married or you had kids or your income changed significantly or you got another job, things like that, you'll want to update this. Also, if on your last year's tax return you underpaid and you had to pay when it came time to file your taxes, well, you need to adjust this because you weren't withholding enough. And of course, underpayment can also result in a underpayment penalty. So we want to avoid any penalties, not pay them if we don't have to. So we're going to fill this out, and I'll show you how to do it in a few different scenarios. And we'll start here by putting in our name, our address, and our social security number. Simple enough, right? Let's pretend like we're single and only have one job, okay? So we scroll down to step 2, and it says this is for people that have multiple jobs or a spouse that also has a job. Well, we're single with one job, so we can skip that. Then it asks us, do we have any dependents? Do we have any children? Do we take care of any other dependents? Now, let's say we have one child. Let's say we have one child that we take care of. Well, it tells you to multiply the number of your child dependents by 2,000. So if we have one times 2,000, we put 2,000 here. And let's say we take care of our great aunt, okay, and she's an other dependent. Well, it tells you to do the same thing. Multiply this other dependent amount by how many dependents. We have one great aunt, so 1 times 500, we put 500 here. So if we add up 2,000 and 500, we'd put 2,500 here. Now, it's blank because the PDF wouldn't let me edit it, but I'm just describing what it would look like if you were to add dependents. And then we move on. Step 4, which is optional. And it asks about other income not from jobs. Maybe you did something that you got paid for. Maybe you helped someone out with something and they gave you money for it. And they even say that what if you got some interest or dividends or retirement income, money that didn't already have withholding, basically taxable income that didn't have withholding. Well, you can add it here and it'll factor that into how much needs to be withheld. If you are taking deductions instead of the standard deduction, which is rare with the W-4 or W-2 employees, but at least they give you a space. If you know that you're going to take more deductions than the standard deduction, you can write it in here. But this is less common, and you should do this with the guidance of a tax pro. And then extra withholding, and I have a number here for a different reason, but you don't even need to fill this out. Now, if nothing has changed since when you first filled this form out, when you first got hired, and you didn't withhold enough, you can always write in a number here for extra withholding to make sure that you're actually withholding enough so you don't get an underpayment penalty. But if you're just filling this out and you know you haven't been underpaying, then you can leave this blank. And if you don't have any dependents, you can leave step 3 blank. So it's as simple as that for a single person with one job. You sign at the bottom, you date it, and you're done. That's why this form is actually more simple than it looks. Now let's pretend that we're either single with 2 jobs or we're married and both spouses work. So let's say that. And those scenarios are more or less treated the same because you either have one person with 2 jobs or 2 people with 2 jobs combined. So that's why they kind of categorize it the same way here with multiple jobs or spouse works. All right. So you check the respective filing status here. Okay. And then we go down here and it says do only one of the following. Now they give you a link to do what they call the most accurate withholding estimator. And this brings up another page on the IRS's website. You can click on the tax withholding estimator and fill out all this information. And then it'll give you a number, what they consider to be the most accurate number. So it's a calculator you can use. Now, if you don't use that, you also have a multiple jobs worksheet on page 3, and that's what I use for the example. So let me show you what it looks like. So we scroll down past the instructions down to page 3, and it says, okay, if you have 2 jobs, and I'll just paraphrase it rather than bore you with reading all this, but it basically says, think of which is the higher paying job and which is the lower paying job, and then go down here. All right, we have this grid. And there's a higher paying job here. And let's say the higher paying job's 100,000. Let's say one spouse makes 100,000. And let's say the other spouse makes 60,000. So we find 100,000 here on the higher paying job, 60,000 here on the lower paying job. And then we find this number. This is at the intersection of these two figures. So we take this number, 10,820, and we put it up here, up top. Now this next section is for 3 jobs, which is less common, so we're not going to use this section for this example, but we're going to scroll down to number 3. Now, even though this looks like a lot, it's only 3 figures you're putting in here, so it's actually quite simple. And it asks you about how many pay periods per year. Now, they even give you the numbers to make it easy. Most people are paid bi-weekly, which is 26 pay periods a year. Now, if you're paid every week, they give you 52. And if you're paid every month, they give you 12. So it's pretty simple. We put in 26, assuming that we're paid bi-weekly because that's the most common. Then it tells you to divide this number by the number of pay periods, and it'll give you a number. And here, this is the number that we got when we divide line 1 by line 3. And we take this number and we plug it in up here. That's why this number is there. So we plug that number in here. All right. So there's one more option because you're doing only one of the following. So we just finished the worksheet option. And that is if there are only 2 jobs total, you can check this box and it says do the same for the W-4 for the other job. So you have 2 different W-4s for 2 different jobs at 2 different companies. Okay. Make sure that if you do option C, that you check the box here and check the same box on the other W-4 at the other job. Both need to be done. And it also tells you, though, it says that this is most accurate if the lower paying job is more than half of the pay of the higher paying job. Otherwise, B is more accurate. So just think of your high and low numbers, which job pays more, which pays less, and then take that in consideration. Because if you have multiple jobs or you and your spouse both work, you're going to have to choose one of these. They recommend A, the calculator. I showed you how to do B, and you can also do C, but just read this and just make sure this makes sense to your situation. Okay? And then that's it for the multiple jobs portion. Same thing with the dependents, as I showed you before. And then it gives you this optional section. And it, of course, allows you to enter other money that you're making not from your primary employment, but where you're getting taxable income without withholding. You can put that in there. If you have more deductions than the standard deduction, again, this maneuver is a little more complicated, so I would recommend doing it under the guidance of a tax pro. And then extra withholding, and of course, even if nothing has changed, no life event or your income hasn't changed significantly since you first filled this form out when you got hired, if you underpaid last year, you can get a copy of this form, ask for it from HR, or just get it off the IRS's website and deliver it to HR, and then just put a figure in here of how much more to withhold each pay period. I mean, it can't get more simple than this. They give you a space to write in how much more is withheld. And if you withhold too much, it gets refunded to you. But there's no penalty for having extra withholding, except that there's the opportunity cost, of course. You could have invested that money. But what the sake of this video and tutorials for is to avoid an underpayment penalty, because you don't want to pay penalties. That's money wasted. You're going to sign, date. This form is just 1 page, and you can hold on to all this other stuff for reference. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching.